Greetings and welcome to Conversations about Meditation. So I am really excited today, y'all. I found Mary Meckley, who is the founder of the Sip and Own Meditation app, and she is also the host of the Daily Meditation podcast. And we're going to have a conversation about meditation. So Mary, welcome.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited. I'm excited because I found Mary. Mary has such a calming voice. And I found Mary on the Soundwise app. And I also found you somewhere else. I think your daily podcast. I'm not sure how I found you, but I found you and I was like, I've been stalking you a little while. So I thought that I would invite you to come and talk with us about your journey in meditation. So Conversations about Meditation is just an opportunity for people to talk to people from all walks of life about meditation and how meditation impacts their lives. So we'll just have a conversation. And I wanted to find out, how did you get started with meditation before you became a meditation teacher? How did you fall into or dive into or just stumble into whatever your journey was? How did you get started meditating?
Well, it was a long journey, and it took a while for me to actually sit down to meditate. I started my journey with tea. I lived in Japan, and I lived in Tokyo, and I worked for a corporation there, and I helped train people for intercultural communication. And so I was the only foreigner, the only female in the company. And so every day, several times a day, there would be a tea break. And there were actually tea ladies who would come out and serve a cup of or a bowl of green tea. And I remember thinking, oh, this is so nice, but I'm going to just work through the break and get a whole lot.
Typical American, I'm going to work through the break.
And I really thought that I was, I thought I was being, just so, much more productive, and they're taking these tea breaks. And what I noticed is that after the tea breaks, everything just came alive for my colleagues. And I was kind of just like making my way through the day and getting a little bit, more tired and distracted towards the end of the day. And they were really refreshed. And I noticed that they weren't just having tea, but they would close their eyes, and some of them would probably fall asleep, but many of them were meditating. And I didn't really know about meditation too much. And I just kind of noticed that these people were to work together in a team. They would really listen for a while to the whole concept, or we would work on different projects because they were traveling around the world. They were all electrical engineers. And so I would help them, communicate in the Western world, like handshake and eye contact and intercultural communication that way. And I remember feeling like when I was presenting or working together and brainstorming how we're going to approach this certain project, I was really dynamic and excited at the beginning, and they would just sit there and not say anything. And I remember feeling like, are they listening? Are they engaged? But what they were doing is they were doing what you learn to do as you meditate. They were trying to absorb the whole big picture before making any kind of judgment or decision. And it would take a while to reach a decision. And I remember initially being really frustrated by that. And I realized that actually the decisions they made, and once they made a decision, it was kind of like everybody was on board. Then the project came together so fast.
Wow.
And there was so much clarity. So while I was in Japan working at this company, noticing this, starting to have my tea breaks, starting to relax with my cup of tea, not meditating yet, I was also studying the Japanese tea ceremony, which is very Zen and very meditative in a way. And I also studied the Ikebana, the Japanese art of flower arranging, which is also very Zen. And so I lived in Japan for 5 years. And when I returned back to the States, we were in Seattle, and meditation was very plentiful. There are many people meditating. And so I started taking more interest. And then we ended up moving to Portland, Oregon. And I really became engaged in meditation there, where I would sit down and I would meditate. But I will say that it took me several years before I got to the point where I realized what stillness even was. Now, I don't want to discourage anyone out there and think, oh, she lived in Japan for 5 years and then it took her a few more. No, I should came back to the States. It really was a process.
Yeah.
For me, now the process would happen so much sooner for people, because our culture here, for many of the listeners, may be in the Western world, and where it's becoming more and more mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And so this process of slowing down, listening to your inner stillness, people are very open and receptive. So you can move along much faster in the process. But that's how I started.
I love that, and I just did this weekend, one of my regular meditators and a friend, we call each other Sisters in Silence. Susan does a Korean tea service, and she used to do it in person, and now we've been doing it online because of COVID, but she also incorporates a craft, and we're doing drawings now. And there's just something about that process, like you said, because you have to let the tea cool. How long were your breaks?
They were about 10 minutes long.
Okay.
About 10 minutes long. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is becoming something that I'm connecting with a little bit more. And I think it's important, even though I take breaks, but there's something about that intentional portion of having the tea, letting the tea cool, drinking the tea. Just, it's amazing how the body and the mind gets acclimated to things. And then you are really opening yourself up to receive inspiration, and I love that. So how did you move from doing meditation to becoming a meditation teacher or facilitator or guide or host or whatever your terminology is?
Yeah, so I studied meditation. For me, and I know for many Westerners, it starts as a process where I kind of needed to understand it. I needed some hard science, some facts. And so I started to study it and take lots of classes and courses on the art and science of Raja Yoga, which includes meditation. And then we moved across the country. We lived just outside of Washington, D.C. for a while. And then we ended up moving to Florida, where I currently live.
Yeah.
And while I was in Florida, I just wasn't, meditation at that time in the location where I was living was not mainstream at all. And I remember just feeling this deep longing that I didn't really connect with anyone. And in fact, when I did share it with a few people, I remember them telling me, I guess I lived more what you could consider in Florida as the Bible Belt. And they told me that it was satanic and, these things that I had never really considered before. And I just remember feeling really alone and isolated in something I was so passionate about. And so I decided to go online, and I became a certified meditation teacher. I would go, I received my training in California, the Northern California area. And I would go there because the whole environment was so mainstream, meditation, yoga, a lot of different, more alternative philosophies. And I would try to go out there as much as I could, but I had, 2 children. So I had to kind of, balance that. And I became certified in yoga and meditation and went online, and I started a podcast. And podcasts were not common at that time. This was 7 years ago. And I just wanted to share what I was learning and teaching. I really had no idea if I would have any listeners, and that was okay because I kind of just wanted to get it out there. It helped me be more consistent and become better at what I wanted to teach. And so that's how it started with a podcast. And I've been doing it daily for 7 years. I haven't missed a day. And I know you have been doing daily as well.
Yeah. Not 7 years. That is impressive.
Well, I mean, most people to do something daily, it's a big commitment. So you do a daily as well. So
yeah,
I really honor that.
So you went from doing that, you followed that inspiration, right, to do a podcast, even not knowing, even though you never know. Same thing I did. I don't know if anyone's listening, and sometimes it's kind of like, hello, 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 is anyone out there? And so I know you have it right. I mean, that's how it feels sometimes. Do you find that your meditation practice has changed over? I'm sure it may have changed over the last 7 years, but we're just coming out of lockdown, right? Or lock up, whatever you want to call it. How have you noticed your practice? Did it change for you over that time that we were in deep confinement?
Yes, it did. I think, like for many people, it deepened, but it deepened with pain. It deepened because, sometimes when you're meditating and you're doing all these things, you kind of can feel like, oh, I'm doing all this, and so this should be happening. And I noticed that I wasn't able to manage my stress as well during the pandemic, and we moved, and a lot of things happened. A lot of things are happening. And I just remember feeling emotionally unsettled about a lot of things. And so when I would meditate, I found it harder to feel grounded. And I found it harder to, when I did stick with it, I found my ritual deepening. I could really go into a deeper meditation because I realized that I was coming so much from the heart, which is what I should be doing. Whereas before, I always kind of came from my head. This is good for me. I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
Things in life are going pretty well. But then when there's uncertainty and things outside of our control, my heart and my emotions took over. And so I really struggled with that as a meditator. I felt like I was regressing. Here I've, meditated and I'm teaching meditation, but I'm having a hard time myself.
Yeah.
And I realized that it was more important than ever to focus on my heart and to trying to make sense of things, just let that go. Because really, when you try to make sense of things and you feel, security, you feel it's really beneficial, but it almost doesn't allow you to go as deep because things are going pretty well, and when you have this friction or confusion or, overcoming a lot of difficult situations, you really pull from your heart. And so you go deeper. It's like you tap into what you're made of. And it's harder, but it's much more, it's worth it. So I found that that's a good question that you asked me, but I did find that I went deeper, but I really felt torn and discouraged and feeling like, is this even working for me? Because I felt like I should just really be calm all the time.
Yeah, we put those expectations on ourselves, right? And for me, much of my stress, it is mostly internal. It's like, like you said, we should, shouldn't all over ourselves, right? I should be able to not get upset when XYZ fill in the blank. I should be able to, feel highly meditated when my husband says something and I just want to just go, and not be able to, but we're human,
We
we're
are.
human. And this, to me, that is part of the journey and the process that sometimes,
Mhm.
even as people who are guiding and facilitating and hosting and teaching, we just have to be, it's an opportunity to connect with that heart and to be kind to ourselves and to know when it's okay to be able to apologize and say, you know what, I help me, please.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
help me. It's like I really did not handle that the way in my mind I did. I did something different,
Yeah. I found that for myself. I had to really kind of up my game. I mean, that's not a good way to explain it, but
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
I had to reevaluate a lot of um, my thoughts and beliefs of, okay, if you do this, you get this,
Hmm.
but that's not always the case. So I had to learn how to be okay with this uncertainty or difficulty. I had to learn to be okay and know that really the solution and answer was within my heart. When I can tap into that emotion and connection in my heart, then I can share that more with others. And so it was really good for me. And I hope that, everything that's happening in the world these days, that's maybe what we'll realize is that when we look at our hearts and really analyze our hearts and then we're able to share our hearts better with others.
Hmm. Hmm. We were talking a little bit before we got started about mudras, right? Can you explain what a mudra is? And is there a mudra that you can share that we can use that would allow us to connect with our heart space? Is there something?
Yeah. So mudras are simply ways you position your hands.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of nerve endings in our hands and our fingertips. And when you position them in a certain way, it stimulates a corresponding region of your brain. It's similar to yoga.
Hmm.
It's often referred to as yoga in your hands
Yeah.
or acupressure. And so when you do a mudra, you stimulate these nerve endings, and the idea is that it impacts, for example, meditation impacts, we know, the prefrontal lobes of your
Hmm.
brain.
Hmm.
And so that's the area where you're able to manage your emotions in a better way. It's your reasoning center. And so
Hmm.
emotions stimulate different areas of your brain. And so they've been done for over 5,000 years. And it's a technique that's popular in many cultures, not just India, or it's done in many different cultures. One of the most common mudras that people can do easily is the Jnana mudra. It's where you tap your thumb to your fingers
Hmm.
and you just leave your other, or you tap your thumb to your index fingertip. So you
Hmm.
make a circle like the OK sign with your
Hmm.
hands.
Yep.
And then you rest your hands on your lap or on your thighs, whatever feels best for you. You can even
Hmm.
hold it at your chest if you want to really feel just, a little more heart-centered, as we were
Okay.
talking about. You can hold it right at your chest, your fourth chakra. And you can hold the mudras for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. The more times you do them throughout the day, the better. And the Jnana mudra, this is a classic mudra of yoga. That circle you're creating is like the universal symbol of peace and unity. And so that's why you often see statues or deities in Asian cultures doing this mudra.
Hmm.
And you can do this as you meditate. And even the simple act of doing it right now, if you just tap your thumb to your index finger,
Hmm.
you sort of feel complete. And
Yeah.
that's the idea of this mudra.
Yeah.
So this is a very simple mudra people can do. Another mudra that people can do that they may notice they intuitively do is the Hakini mudra. And
Hmm.
it's where you tap your fingertips together. And it's almost like you're holding a ball, you're creating space between your palms.
Hmm.
And this mudra You can hold at your chest or down on your lap, whatever. It's nice if you can hold it at your chest, but sometimes it's hard to hold it for a while as you're meditating, your
Yeah.
arms get tired. So you can just hold it in your lap. This is a mudra to help you make decisions. And
Uh-huh.
I know many people are, making important decisions these days. You often see leaders or people who are presenting or thinking, you'll often see them holding this pose. And you
Mhm.
may even find that you intuitively do it when you're reflecting on something or thinking about something. And so this is a fun, great mudra to do to help give you mental clarity.
That is so true because I do this. It's amazing how our body, one of my meditators says our body is our boss, right? Our body lets us know what's happening, what we need to do. And you're absolutely right. I remember before I started, I also have been doing Qigong and Tai Chi, and I started doing that with Kaiser Permanente, and then we were in person, and then I've been doing it online. And there are areas that I would rub on my body that, were energy areas that I just naturally started rubbing. And it was like, oh, that's where my kidneys are. That's where, whatever. And it's just amazing because your body tells you what it wants. If you listen, it will tell you what it
Yeah.
wants. So, well, wonderful. Well, Mary, how would you encourage someone that may be brand new to meditation? What would you suggest they do? And feel free to share your resources at this time so they can join you, or what would you recommend for someone who's brand spanking new?
Yeah. Well, I think that if you're new to meditation and you want to try it, you should definitely do it. And I highly recommend, if you're new, to be patient and not to do it for too long. If you could meditate for a minute, just begin to sit in stillness. And you might wonder, well, how should I sit? You can, it's always good to sit up straight with a straight spine. It helps keep you alert. You can sit on the floor, in a chair. But some people start by laying down, and that's fine too. You're more inclined to fall asleep, but that's okay if you feel relaxed and you had a nice relaxation. You'll eventually want more because you'll notice that it feels good. So whatever you can do to meditate for a certain amount of time in the way that works for you. For me, it started with holding a cup of tea, just calming myself down, because you can't really gulp tea. You have to sip it. It's kind of hot. And so you slow down, and I wasn't looking at my phone or anything. I was just sitting in stillness. And so you start to notice that. You start to
Mhm.
quiet down. And I think that's what is so beautiful about meditation, is that you begin to notice changes very quickly.
Yes.
And so just find a place where you're not likely to be interrupted. Get in a place where you feel comfortable being seated. And if you can sit up straight, that's great. And then just begin by even putting some nice music on. There are many guided meditations. You do a daily
Yeah.
guided meditation.
And you do a daily podcast. So, yeah.
So there's some resources right there, and you can just calm down and experience how it feels to relax a little bit. If you can do it in the morning before you start your day, you're less likely to be engaged in all the distractions from the day. Because when you meditate in the middle of the day, sometimes you're still engaged in that outside world, what's going on out
Mhm.
there, and
Mhm.
it can be really hard to pull your mind away from that. In the morning, you're fresher before you start your day. But if you feel a little rushed in the morning, then the evening is great as well, because you're
Mhm.
winding down. Sometimes you might be too tired though. So experiment and see what works best for you. It's just like starting an exercise routine where
Yeah.
you just maybe walk before you
Mhm.
start running if
Yeah.
you aren't exercising regularly.
Yep. Excellent. Well, Mary, tell them how they can access information about you and how they can connect with you wherever you are. This is your opportunity to share those details now. And they will also be noted in the description for this project.
Yeah, thank you. So I can be reached, or you can find my podcast at the Daily Meditation Podcast every day. And I have an app that has longer 30-minute guided meditations on the SIP and to Om meditation app. And you can always reach out to me. You can send me a direct message if you have a question on my SIP and Om Instagram.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me for conversations about meditation. If you are someone who has a practice or you're a teacher, I would love to talk with you so we can continue to share in the world how meditation can be an impact. So feel free to reach out to me. You can reach me at Barbara Faison, LLC at Gmail, or you can send me a direct message. I'm everywhere online but TikTok. So you can find me just about everywhere. And I thank you so much. If you like this, please comment, like, subscribe, and share, because we just want to have people understand that meditation can be impactful in a positive way. So thank you for joining me. Be well.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Right. Bye-bye.